Hello and welcome to an evening with the remaining Backstreet Boys. No, my name is Chris Thurston, and this is the beginning of episode 235 of the Crate and Crowbar. I should have checked that in advance. We should probably also introduce ourselves. I'm Chris Thurston. I'm the writer and designer for an indie hacking MMO called Hack Mode. I also used to work for PC Gamer and do a bunch of game channels, worked at Eurogamer and other places. This is Tom Francis. Who's that?
Worst possible time to take a drink. So
Yeah.
I was really trying to strategize that, and it did not pan out.
No.
Hello, I'm Tom.
Damn it.
More?
I'm Graham Smith. I'm the editor of Rock, Paper, Shotgun. I have not done this since last year at Rezzed.
Wow.
He's a rare drop, Graham, but you've got him. And this is Alex Wiltshire, who you'll mostly know as the man responsible for ruining 2 previous episodes of the podcast.
The sporadic, chaotic element. You say it's never my fault. I feel the need to apologize.
Okay, let's
but
not
it's
do
your
this
fault.
here. There are people.
But
Alex, who are you?
so I used to work on Edge magazine. I write for Rock, Paper, Shotgun. I write for PC Gamer. I'm a journalist and writer and stuff.
If you're not aware of Tom, because I feel like he was a little bit possibly too modest, he's the man responsible for...
I was the designer on Gunpoint and Heat Signature.
Cool. Thanks, Tom.
No worries.
What we're going to do today is going to be a little bit different to the regular format. We are going to talk about games that we've enjoyed from the show here that we've played or seen or know about. That is, because this is the end of the day, if this is your only day at Rezzed, then this is absolutely useless to you as a recommendation system. So in a sense, it forms more like a bingo card. If you do complete the set, we all vanish like Bejeweled. We should start with the game that was announced at Rezzed, I believe.
Oh, Put my water back down. I've played Order of Magnitude, which is the new game from Introversion, developers of most recently Prison Architect. No, not most recently Prison Architect. Most recently
Scanner
Yeah. Yes, but before that, Prison Architect, and Prison Architect is more relevant in this instance, as you'll see. Order of Magnitude is a hard sci-fi strategy management game about rebuilding humanity in space. It's set in the future when Earth has been destroyed through methods that are not fully explained in the build that I've played, anyway. Asteroid, is it? Oh, well,
Okay, that gets
I
beyond
just
it, yeah.
wasn't paying attention.
Because I was hoping it was going to be a DEFCON sequel, and that's why it was destroyed, but
Of
not,
course.
apparently not.
Earth is still there. It's just like the charred remains with still fires burning on the surface of
Yeah.
it, and you can see it. And in the demo that's here, you're building a colony on the moon, and it's hard sci-fi in the sense that you have to worry about the things that you might have to worry about if you were building a colony on the moon, like where is your energy coming from, where is your water coming from, how are you recycling your water and your oxygen in order to continue to survive on this surface. And it's taking place in a 3D world, which is, or 3D solar system, which is being properly simulated as you're playing. So you can be building a colony on the surface of the moon, and then you can zoom out from there and go visit Jupiter or Mars or any of the other planets in our solar system. And the build that they've got here, they're describing it as being pre-alpha. It's very, very early, but there are hints in the build that you will be eventually able to travel between the planets, have colonies on multiple different planets, and be dealing with the logistics of that. Now, obviously, Introversion have made a strategy management game before. They played Prison Architect. Prison Architect, if you haven't played it, was very much concerned with toilets and sadness about toilets, as you were basically dealing with the moods and emotions of your prisoners that were under your care or in your charge, depending on how you look at it. And they would get very angry in a dwarf fortress sort of way and start smashing stuff up if things were broken and that sort of thing. There is little people walking around your colony in Order of Magnitude, but it doesn't seem to be their intent to simulate things on that kind of granular scale. Instead, there's 2 things going on. One is you can set policies for your colony, so you can do things like forbid religion, forbid procreation, and that sort of stuff, and that will obviously have some sort of effect on the population that are living in that particular colony. But then there's also this kind of grander macro scale stuff that's going on in that there is like a logistics overview, and you can see how your buildings are relating to each other, and then presumably how your colonies are relating to each other, because a big part of it seems to be how are you getting the resources that you need in order to survive. And that was sort of the coolest moment in the demo for me. Like, the demo is, as I say, very early, and it's mostly a tutorial which just takes you through put down this building, now put down that building, now put down this building. But there is a moment where it asks you to like scan the planet for ice. And all you're doing is like flicking on an overlay, like a resource overlay, which highlights ice under the surface. But in order to be able to see that ice, you have to zoom out first. So you've been staring at this little colony in front of you this whole time, and then you zoom out into the planetary scale. And at that point, you're thinking about it in a way that you weren't a moment ago, because now you're thinking about things that are on the other side of the moon that you're on. And so if they can then do that to a greater order of magnitude, see where the name comes from, then I think that could be a really cool thing. But it is pretty early at this stage, so it's hard to see exactly where they're going to go.
Did they say to you how long it has been in development?
9 months.
They did.
The cool thing about it being all in a simulated place as well is that, like a lot of these games, it's got a time scale thing where you can have it like fast forward, super fast forward. And as you're doing that, you'll just see like the sun go past and the Earth go past. And it has this, it's actually like a little bit dizzying, because you can kind of feel you're on this spinning thing in the solar system. Chris also said that once you like have your moon colony established, the next thing to look into is like rocketry. And once you build a launch pad, there isn't just like a ship that you just click on and build. There's just ship parts, so you have to just design your own ship. And
it's like anywhere near Kerbal.
Yeah, so basically like Kerbal Space Program plus colony management game.
Right, plus off-world trading company.
Yeah, a little bit.
Right.
I'm disappointed there's no sewage management.
I think
because that's an important thing. Like I've seen a documentary called The Martian.
Well, there sort of is. Like you build treatment plants, and then you can take your poo and your pee, and you can recycle it into not those things.
Just anything else.
Yeah, anything else.
Delicious food, I'm sure. It's pretty cool. I had something else I was going to say in it, and it vanished from my brain.
It's because of the poo and wee
chat
we've gone to already.
So what are the sort of limiting factors? You kind of, when you're building the base, did you get a sense of kind of placement stuff being important, and you're kind of managing space and things like that?
There wasn't in the build that I played, no, but that was what I was going to say actually, was the thing of seeing the sun go by as you're just building, and that's like a neat novelty, and it is slightly dizzying, but it does have some relevance to the stuff you're building, because that's the thing of it being hard sci-fi, is you get 2 weeks of sunlight, and then you get 2 weeks of darkness. And so you need to be storing enough energy from your solar panels in order to be able to survive those 2 weeks of darkness. Now in the build that's there, it's a tutorial, and it's trivial in order to do that. Like you can just build seemingly infinite amounts of stuff, and there's no resource cap or anything like that. But I'm assuming that that's going to come into play more as you're building on planets which perhaps have more darkness and less sunlight.
It's quite a RimWorld
it's
thing.
not just a tutorial.
Bit of RimWorld there, isn't it?
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, I was asking if obviously that has the potential to be disastrous. Like if you don't have enough energy and you've got like another 20 days before sunrise, that's a problem. I was asking, so like, is it going to be that kind of knife edge to disaster kind of sim? And Chris said he doesn't think they do want to go in that direction. Like you have this cryopod of colonists that's just out in space, and that's where you guys came from. If you fuck it all up, there's still some more over there, and you can bring them over.
Don't worry, everyone. We've got some more.
Yeah.
There's always colonists in the bananist, and that's nothing.
Cryo banana.
Yeah, exactly. Fishing for podcast titles. What have you seen, Tom? Because you came down today, right?
Yes. So I've seen only that, because
Okay.
I just got it. Do we want to talk about only stuff here, or?
No, that's fine.
Because I did dip my toe briefly into Crusader Kings II.
Huh.
Which is not the best game to dip your toe briefly into.
How?
I played the tutorial, which is more significant than most tutorials, and it ends when you die of old age at 40. So it's quite like there's a lot to it. And the main thing I wanted to know is like I knew that from many stories from this game that it definitely has the kind of complexity and depth that I like, and also the generates like really characterful and interesting stories. But the main thing I wanted to know is like, is it just kind of a pain in the ass to play and understand and get to grips with? Yeah, it is. But not so much that I couldn't at least. I guess I haven't completed the tutorial. I guess I must be like 38 now. I'm going to die soon. It'll be over before long. But the tutorial is basically just the game, except they sort of guide you and tell you what to do next. And the only difference is that
which king or queen or
I'm
Dutch?
someone Alfonso of Leon,
Okay.
which is near Portugal, except there isn't a Portugal, I don't think, yet. And one of the rules of the tutorial is no one will declare war on you. You're basically safe. No one will declare war, and also you can't have any internal problems. So they just kind of put it in basically safe mode until you die of old age.
Your job is to just die.
Yeah, that doesn't end the game though, because it's like a lineage thing. So
course.
you play as I think your brother is your heir initially, although actually one of your ambitions can be to start a family and have children who will inherit, and then you just play as them when you die. Given that they make it so that nothing can go wrong, quite a lot went wrong in my 38 years, or I guess, I'm not sure what age I started at, but however long I've been playing. I, mostly through not really understanding how anything worked, and my first ambition was to, you can actually choose what your ambition is, but it suggests get married, so I did. And it wasn't quite that, so I chose that ambition is what I mean. And then you get a list of all the people you could possibly marry. And they have all these stats about diplomacy, intrigue, I think military leadership, and that kind of things. And then you mouse over them and it tells you quite good in-depth tooltips about what this thing does. And there's one stat that every time I moused over it, nothing came up. It's just 25, 16, 10, 4,
Yeah,
8. No. Oh, that's their age. One of my options is a 4-year-old girl to marry. So I think I won't do that. And there was one person in particular who had, she was a masterful diplomat. I think she had diplomacy of 12. And then what really sold me on this as a romantic prospect was that her espionage skill was 16. She was a naturally gifted spy master.
I feel like you just got out ahead of someone's question from the audience.
So naturally I married her and also hired her as my spy master. And then...
I never saw her again.
Yeah, that would be she was missing from the project. Wait, didn't I get married? No, I suppose not. No. And the espionage thing, I forgot what is it just called espionage? I can't remember. But there's just a name for all that stuff, intrigue, espionage. And you can use it to build a spy network, or I was trying to infiltrate the nation next to me because I wanted to press my weak claim to it, which is just a thing it tells you can do. You've got 2 weak claims you could be pressing.
You're in your weak claims, Tom.
I don't know, are you saying I should do that, or are you saying I shouldn't do that? Because you're telling me it's weak, but you're also telling me to do it. So I thought, well, I should at least create a spy network in this country before I press my weak claim. That seems only polite. And then shortly after, I couldn't press that weak claim. That was just gone. I only had 1 weak claim I could press. And I'm not sure what happened to my spy network in that country or any of the things that I'd done in that country. It may just be ruled by someone else now.
So why now Crusader Kings II? That's not a joke. No, genuinely, it's people go through their, am I capable of understanding Crusader Kings, yes or no, window at different points in their lives,
Yep.
but why now for you?
It was free recently.
Oh, yeah, all right, that'll do.
And the price wasn't stopping me before, but it just everyone was talking about it again, and someone had once again linked the forums, which are amazing, because it's just how do I kill the Pope? And yeah, I couldn't press my weak claim to that country anymore, but there's one on my left, and I don't know what I did exactly, but I ended up at war with this country. And Crusader Kings is kind of real-time. It's real-time with pause. It's not turn-based. And so a lot of the time, it's just pause, and you're managing all these menus and stuff. And then I realized I'd actually been spending most of the game paused, and all the stuff I've been sorting out. That was the reason my marriage wouldn't happen. I'd sent a proposal and just silence for ages, and I was just waiting and waiting. What's she going to say? I want to find out about my marriage proposal. And I realized it's because I paused the game. As soon as I unpause, it's immediately, congratulations, you're married now. It's that easy, apparently.
Yeah.
So I ended up at war somehow with the other place that I had a weak claim to. And I still had the notification about pressing the weak claim there. So I still have a weak claim to that country, but I don't seem to be able to do it anymore because now we're at war. Once you're at war,
if I remember correctly, you can't declare war if you don't have a claim. So because otherwise, that's
so a weak claim to war.
Yeah, it's basically I deserve this place in a very weak sense. let's have a
The
fight.
flimsiest possible way.
But you
I
can't
feel
have a
that
fight if you've got no claim at all, I think.
But I also can't press my claim because I'm at war. Like, it's telling me I can't do that now.
I think
I
you've
think there's a
pressed it now.
difference between a claim and a, was it causes belli?
Oh,
So I
yeah.
think
Yeah.
there are reasons that you can go to war. You do need a reason in order to start a war.
And that's
but,
Casus Belli.
yeah, but it's not purely having a claim. I think you can press your claim, which is basically you just start like a marketing campaign in that country that says that you should be the
So
leader of it.
did you assign a
my ad
marketeer to the team? You got some marketers, PR?
I should have married a marketer, not a spy.
Also, if your wife has an espionage trait and it turns out that later
Yeah.
in their relationship she comes to dislike you, that's a really
Yeah.
bad trait for that
Yeah.
person to
Yeah.
have because she's going to kill you when
She's
you're
gonna
asleep.
come
You
and
never
kill
see it
you.
coming.
Okay, but our daughter will inherit, so I'll just play as her instead.
Yeah, that's true.
Excellent. I've got her either way. Perfect prenup. If I die, I play as my daughter.
It is weird though, because like sometimes you kind of play as a character. The next in line is someone that you hated as the one, you know, the parent or whatever, because they're useless and kept
Yeah.
trying to steal land from you and things.
It keeps warning me that I've got a vassal inheritance problem, which is not a problem I thought I'd have to deal with. But one of my vassals, if they die, it says, oh, someone else will inherit their thing, but it's my brother. So I'm like, oh, that's fine, isn't it? It's all in the family. Like, he was my heir at the time. Like, if I die, he gets it too. But apparently that's a problem. And later I came to understand why that might be a problem, because after... So first of all this was like paused, and then when I unpaused, I got married immediately, had a kid not long after that, and also the war, which I didn't know I'd started, unfolded at a terrifying pace, where it was just like, you've been defeated in this siege that I didn't know I'd started. And then before I could click OK to that defeat, a new thing had popped up to say you've also been defeated over here. And that just happened like 12 times. Just every battle that I didn't know I was fighting all got, I got defeated in all of them, one after the other, before I could really do anything. I was still getting married.
This is
That
the
was not 100%.
tutorial. You got wiped out in the tutorial.
I don't know if I got wiped out. I can't see any of this stuff. I don't know where these places are I'm being defeated. I can't see any armies. I can't see any like opportunities. I don't remember telling these people to attack, but I guess they're doing it really badly. And it was only after I'd been at war with this guy for a long time. I tried some like negotiation tactics, and like, would you like to give up your country in exchange for peace? And he said, no, I'm winning the war, which was a reasonable point. I couldn't really deny that at this point. And then I started looking for someone to support. I decided to plot to kill him, naturally, because my wife's a gifted spy, and I felt like this was my one ace in my hand. And so I plotted to kill him, and that didn't go anywhere for a long time. I had like 92% plot strength. I don't know what that means, but I felt like if I got to 100, that would be a good sign. And you can invite people to support your claim. So I went through the list. You just click on it, it pops up the list of all the people you can invite to support your claim. The best person, the person with the highest espionage score, obviously caught my attention. And it was a mayor or something. And I started talking to him, and he loves money. His ambition is to get loads of money, so I just gave him some money. And
That's called a bribe.
yeah. And he liked me 44 after that. Previously, only liked me 2, then he liked me 44. So that was a good move. But it wasn't quite enough to get him to turn against, to help me kill this king. And it shows you a breakdown of his reasoning. His reasoning is, number 1, I'm amoral, so that's a point in the positive column. Big tick mark for that. Number 2, my opinion of you is 3 green pluses. Good stuff, because I gave him all that money. And then opinion of the king is like shown as 3 red negatives, which at first I thought, great, he hates him. But actually it means, no, my opinion of the king is a reason there's 3 negatives against me joining your plot. So like he actually likes that king. And then there's the natural reluctance, which is also 3 negatives, to killing, apparently. He's amoral, but he's got some kind of problem with killing.
He takes
Fine.
bribes, but he's not a murderer.
bribing amoral
There's a
guy.
rainbow of possibility in that space.
And his opinion on the king I was trying to kill fluctuated a little bit. And after a while, I was examining the enemy king's armies, and I realized he's a commander in that army. He's part of that nation. Like, he works for that king. That might be why he had a bit of reluctance to do this. And also around that time, I discovered this king is my brother.
He's also your brother.
Yep.
The same
it's the
brother?
same brother, actually.
Oh, okay.
The same brother?
Yep.
So that's why there was a vassal problem, Tom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my brother's going to inherit it, which might not be a problem under normal circumstances, except I kind of declared war on him, apparently. And he's winning dramatically.
How did you not know he was your brother?
There's a little, I guess there's a little like blood icon, and I didn't know what that meant for a while. I thought it meant like
Vampire.
war. Yeah, vampire or war. It turns out that means blood relative.
Right.
And it does, in fairness, if you mouse over him, it does say your brother in fairly prominent text. I didn't mouse over my enemies a lot. Like, that's just not a thing I thought to do. Also, at some point during this, it popped up to say that someone had declared a new pope and a new anti-pope. I wasn't sure. How does an anti-pope work? Is that like a matter-antimatter thing, where if they collide, it's a pure energy explosion? Or is it more like antipasti, where it kind of comes before the main pope, and then you get the real pope?
The starter.
Yeah.
I don't know. Someone probably does, though, because that's almost certainly a real thing.
If you know, tell us in the questions.
Yeah, please. Like, it would be, yeah.
Do you have more respect for toffs now?
More respect for what?
Toffs.
Toffs. I always respected toffs.
Are you going to keep playing Crusader Kings after the tutorial, or?
I don't know. Let's wait till I die of old age and see how I go.
So I've been playing a game that Alex has also played prior to the show, but it's at the show, and if you're here tomorrow, definitely play it if you haven't already, which is Disco Elysium, which is was formerly called
No Truce with the Furies. Not Furries.
Not Furries. No Truce with the Furies. Did they change it because of that confusion?
If you ask them, they kind of get a bit slightly annoyed with you.
So try that.
Yeah. So try that. That's a tip. So
but the official reason is that that was the game. They started making that game, and it was meant to be a rather smaller game than the game ended up becoming.
Right.
They resituated it to a larger setting in the same world, and they wanted to get a name that was going to be a bit more general and a bit more bankable, saleable, I suppose.
It's good. I like it. Disco Elysium's cool.
It's good. Yeah, so this is a detective RPG with some incredible kind of art and writing, actually, to be honest. And I really knew nothing about it until you started playing, Alex, and you told me about it last week. And then today I played it for an hour, which is impolite. And the reason I wanted to mention that is because what it is it's a detective RPG where you wake up hungover with really no idea what you're doing or where you are, with amnesia, which is a bit of a hoary old cliche for these kinds of games. But it works because your you have as many interactions with your own subconscious and the many different parts of your subconscious in the opening of the game as you do with other characters. And even when you're talking to other characters, you're also in a kind of state of constant negotiation with your limbic system, or with your lizard brain, which is the first character you speak to, who basically just tells you, wouldn't it be great if you were just nothing forever and we could just be asleep forever? Would that be nice? Because you wouldn't then be hungover. And that first conversation establishes how much you want to push to be conscious again.
And then your limbic system pipes up and says, no, we should definitely be conscious.
Yeah, exactly.
And you have to, like, as a multiple choice dialogue with these two.
Yeah, and this stuff is also your skill system, which is kind of amazing. So the skills have it's a kind of incredibly abstract range of themes about your kind of being, about the kind of nature of yourself. Like your esprit de corps is one of them. One of them is just empathy. And all of these things develop as you speak to people and interact and try and determine who you are. And then they can sometimes kind of take over as well. So if you try and do something unempathetic, you get into a fight with your own empathy midway through a conversation with another NPC. And your empathy is voiced, I should stress. This is a character that you are kind of trying to deal with, who is also one of your stats, which is really interesting. It's like getting in a fight with your dexterity.
Because these are like the equivalent of charisma and skill and strength. Right. Like you don't have strength and stuff, but you have 24 different skills.
Yeah, and your inventory kind of spans a gear, but that's not very important because it's not really like a combat RPG in that way. But you also have thoughts. And thoughts are something that you kind of like plug into your brain for a certain amount of time, and after a certain amount of time has passed, they kind of grow into buffs, maybe, or debuffs. And it's almost like you're kind of keeping track of what's on your character's mind. So at one point, a character just tells you, like, get your shit together, you're a wreck, and you gain the thought. I can't remember exactly what it's called. Is it volumetric shit compression system? Not literal abstract. And it is like the kind of idle thought of, I should get my shit together. I'm a mess.
So there's another one a little bit later on where you're talking to this barman in this downstairs in the hotel that you wake up in, and you know that he. So should I tell you about should we explain the plot?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
So you wake up, you don't know who you are. It's amnesiac time. But you soon learn that you're a cop and that you are there to investigate a body, a putrefying body, which is hanging from a tree behind the hotel. And that your partner, new guy that you haven't known before, you definitely don't remember, is waiting for you. So you go down to the bar and you talk to the barman, and you know that guy isn't who you need to actually talk to. You need to talk to this woman who was there. And you start to ask him where she is, and he won't answer you. And you find yourself that one of the multiple choice selections is, he says, why did you keep asking me this stuff? Like, you know, why do you keep asking where she is? And you say, because I'm a feminist. Because it just occurs to you in that moment.
Yeah.
And this becomes a thought called inexplicable feminist agenda, which gives you bonuses to authority, because you can go around saying, actually, I'm a feminist.
Yeah, like there's another conversation with this is what's interesting about it, because I appreciate if you're saying like that outside of the context of the game. The game itself is extraordinarily humanitarian in how it writes the thought process. It's like, this is, I think we were having a conversation about this earlier, but it enters territory with its characters, because it's not set in a real country, but it is set in a believable setting to a greater or lesser extent, with the exception of your constant conversations with kind of embodied or personified.
I actually do something like that.
Yeah. But like, well, actually, and this is the thing, that one level of abstraction makes it feel super believable, gives you a profound sense of this character's internal life. And it is, the writing is sufficiently mature that it can introduce levels of social awkwardness or way that conversations can go slightly awry that I've never seen an RPG do before. There's a conversation, and that, you know, so there's two conversations quite early. One is with two shitty kids who are just the worst, and they're throwing stones at the corpse, and you want them to stop, and you're basically incapable of telling them to stop. And they are teenagers who are awful. They're terrible. And if you have ever been a polite adult trying to both appear cool, but also get a kid to sort of, like, you are given a kind of web of ways in which to kind of like, how do you do, fellow kids, your way through that conversation. And almost all of them lead to total disaster, but not in a kind of like, you failed the conversation, therefore you don't get, you know, shitty child will remember this, like, telltale thing. You get like that actual, because you're also having these discussions with your own sense of pride, for example. Like, your own sense of authority could be really badly undermined by the fact that a child has just gone, fuck off. and your center of authority turns to you in your own mind and goes like, yeah, we deserve that because we do suck. And and that's actually genuinely kind of super engaging. Like, and there's another conversation with a racist lorry driver whose name is Racist Lorry Driver.
Nominative determinism at its
finest.
Yeah,
and you choose whether you, he says something racist to your partner, and you choose as, and he appeals to you, because you are a white dude, he appeals to you as a fellow white dude to go with him in this. And you choose whether you sort of and ah your way through that, or whether you get very angry with him, whether you throw a punch. There's lots of different things that determine how you negotiate with it. But it feels very awkward in a good, it's actually uncomfortable in that sort of way, and it's because it does such a good job of articulating that character's internal life and creating, you shape who they are. So even though they fit into the trope of the kind of, you know, loser cop that doesn't remember where they are, you determine kind of who they are trying to be in a way that...
Because the skills are really broad. Like, there are 4 different kind of areas of skills. 24 divided by 4 is...
6.
There are 6 in each of them. And like, there's one that's about sort of motor skills, so good at moving. There are others just about physical skills, about sort of asserting yourself physically. So authority is part of that one. There's one about empathy, and there's one about influencing others. So those are the broad kind of areas of skills. And because I really thought it really captures the pen and paper role-playing game experience, whereas that huge space that you can act, and your decisions are kind of controlled, or at least kind of guided by the skills that you have. But actually, you have a lot of space within them to be the character you want to be. So he's an incredibly written character. Like, you know, but the fact is, he's a deadbeat. But if you're really empathetic, or you're really good at using machines, or you're really good at noticing stuff, you feel like a badass cop because you are really good at a specific cop skill.
Yeah.
And as you investigate the body and the clues that you find around them, you'll be guided along these certain routes of knowledge gathering. And you actually, you know, you respect this character, you find depth about that character, but you're also guiding that character, and the character is a result of the choices you made when you rolled it.
Yeah, and that's what's really fascinating. It reminds me a lot of Torment, Tides of Numenera, which I played, which was my game of last year, I think, really, in balance. But Torment is explicitly a fantasy setting, and it has a similar system. The Tides of Numenera are like emotional kind of forces that ebb and flow, like water might. And they can be used, and they can kind of be expressed as almost like magical powers and things, because that's very much a fantasy game. But it's still about how your internal life mirrors who you are in the outside world. And that is also a game about not really knowing who you are and sort of deciding who you are, which I think is a philosophical thread that they have in common. And it's that philosophical thread that I find most interesting about it. Because there are aspects of Disco Elysium that I think, in the hands of a less deft writing team or a less deft art team, could really, really not work.
I was really worried when I was loading it up. I was thinking, this could go horribly wrong.
And so it's because it exists in that sort of like sort of daytime noir, like 6 Degrees of Nicholas Winding Refn kind of like area, right? Like, and so you know, it has a sort of tonal peer in some ways in Hotline Miami, in the sense of kind of deadbeat nasty world where everything's kind of, everyone's sort of, it's almost like a trip or something like that. And Hotline Miami 1 works because it's such a, basically a mood piece. It's essentially a music video, a really very violent music video, but it doesn't kind of like aspire to like really embody characters beyond that. Hotline Miami 2 really did not work for me at all, because it tries to do more with narrative, but it didn't do it with the sensitivity or the empathy to actually try and sympathize, like to actually explore the consequences of violent or negative action. It wasn't sort of funny at the same time. Like the thing that really, really impresses me about Disco Elysium is that it is capable of both being funny and sad and unsettling. And that's what makes it feel very human, even though the character you're embodying, I think at first glance, is this big dude with a mullet and a beard.
Yeah, he's wearing, he wakes up and he's just wearing a pair of underpants, and you have to find his clothes. And you do assume that, like, it's almost sort of cartoon-like, like a kind of point-and-click adventure, you know, like the sort of amusing dead.
Yeah.
It's like, what's his name, Larry, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's grimdark Sam and Max.
Yeah.
That's the other way.
There's a scene earlier on, isn't there, where you go look at yourself in the bathroom mirror, and, and the mirror's all steamed up, and you wipe it off, and you see your face, and then you have a kind of debate with yourself about how hideous you think you look. But you can also apparently just not wipe the steam off that window, the glass.
And not decide to know what you look like.
Yeah, and so the rest of the game, you just go around, and anytime there's a picture of your face, the picture's blurry, because you don't know what you look like. You're an amneysiac, and you didn't look in the mirror. So.
That's what's really
but if you do, you can kind of slowly pull this kind of rictus grin of like sort of, you know, like, I don't know what that is, but it's some sort of something within him kind of glaring out at him. And then he uses this face on people for the next, and everyone sort of...
But it's almost like at the expense of the fact that it has like a Baldur's Gate style like panel system. And like you have a debate with yourself the first time you look yourself in the mirror saying, why do I always do this stupid face? Like, why am I doing this face now? I don't know why I'm doing this face. And you can decide you don't want to know why you're doing this face. Like, that's the level of kind of granularity.
I have 600,000 words, the script at the moment.
I can believe it. It's like...
presumably there are, you know, because skills become more and more dominant as you pile points into them. They'll sort of, and they come with negative points and positive points. So Chris started to explain authority, and authority is about, it is your ability to have controlling will over others. But as soon as you are not getting respect, it can really act up. So I was in a conversation with a woman, an older woman who's kind to me, but I've just been given the bill because I've smashed up my room and I can't afford it. So I chose to beg for money from her.
You can ask almost anybody for money.
Authority was not pleased about this because I should not be begging for money. Like, you deserve this. What are you doing? Like this. If I'd pushed it, the authority may have kind of made me hit her, or I don't know what might have happened. But that's kind of like there's always a sort of a counterbalance to kind of powering up a skill. So it's not actually that good to have like very high power skills because they start actually controlling you.
Yeah, there's a moment early on where you can choose to try and run out on that bill. Have you seen what happens if you say, I'm going to flee, I'm fast, I believe that I'm fast. I like to think of myself as a fast, exciting man. I'm going to run out of this room like I'm in a John Woo movie. And you'd run and leap through the air sideways and give the guy the ups with both hands and go straight into that woman in her wheelchair. And then you have to deal with like the mortifying social consequences of having done that. And the barkeeper's like, it's okay, like it's only like a 20 quid bill. Like, it's just awkward for everybody involved. But you momentarily black out when that happens and have a conversation with yourself about why you did that. And you didn't, and that's kind of nice because the game made you do that. But there's an element of like, I did this because I deserved to do this.
Did you do the autopsy? Better not go into detail about this because this is all very much at the start of the game.
Yeah, this is very much like first year.
But did you do the autopsy?
I did not.
So like the autopsy, I won't tell you the details other than to say that it is incredibly detailed. Like this is a very, very well-researched game. And the procedural side to it, like you examine every aspect of the crime scene and then you start sort of, and it's got gross humor of the fact that you're kind of digging around in a corpse, like a long dead corpse, but also it's telling you about the precise contusions, and then it's really good. It's very, like, yeah, really satisfying.
Is there a like speechcraft equivalent skill? Like a persuasion or...
There are so many, there is a persuasion one. There's authority and there's also, oh God, it's the equivalent of persuasion.
Because I'm wondering, like, those often unlock new conversation options in normal RPGs, and I'm wondering if when talking to your own personality traits, you could use your persuasion personality trait to persuade your own...
Well, I actually managed to access a bit of the game that I shouldn't have, because it got bugged out, and I had a conversation I learned later that I shouldn't have had. I won't go into any details other than the fact that I was having a conversation with somebody, a character, and then a couple of my skills started saying, oh, what a good point she's made. Yeah, oh yeah, definitely should listen to this. Drama was going, yeah, do this. And then volition skill.
Yeah, drama's a really good one, because drama is like, like maybe you should just storm out.
Yeah. But then volition piped up and said, I think that some of these skills might be corrupted. I think they're telling you lies. I don't think you should believe them. I don't know which one it is, but you should be really careful. And this might mean that she's telling you lies. And like, suddenly the conversation with her has taken like an about turn, like, because I don't know who to listen to anymore. I don't even know how to listen to myself. So like, it plays around so much with this stuff. And and this stuff is kind of invisibly opening and unlocking pathways through dialogue trees. The combat is dialogue tree.
Yeah.
As well, because it invokes the same skills. Because when you're in combat, you're kind of asserting yourself physically, so they weren't going to attack you, or you might need motor skills to make yourself be accurate.
So does that mean each fight is like handwritten?
Yeah, it is. It bears a lot of like. It is isometric in the same way as a traditional CRPG, but it has a tremendous interactive fiction heritage, I think. Like, there's an IF, like it could be a text game to some extent, I think. The other thing, maybe the thing that I was going to say that really struck me is it's possible quite early to find out what your actual name is, but you still give yourself a name. And I really like that there's, while you are, and you don't have a memory, it's very realistic about letting you kind of just find that stuff and not dwell on it, not that kind of cliche of the kind of mystery story where you find out you're someone else, you know what I mean, that kind of thing. Like, did you do the conversation with your own police unit and your actual partner?
Yeah.
Because you can phone the police station and say, like, who am I? Like, I'm a policeman, I think. And you get your actual partner, but they all think you're an asshole. And so people keep coming on the phone to be like, oh, you're an idiot, aren't you? And like, yeah. And then you have to try and find a way of saying that you don't know who you are without saying who you are. Or like, without like copying to the fact that you genuinely don't know. So it's like, if I had lost my badge and you were to get me a new badge, what would it say on the badge?
I don't think that covers it at all.
So
and no, it doesn't, and no one tells you.
So I went through that, and now I've lost my police badge. I don't dare.
Yeah, you realize after that conversation, if you choose, like, I think volition suggests that you actually check your pocket, and you realize you have lost it. And then, yeah, it's
And you go, oh no, this is so embarrassing.
And then afterwards, I think it's your esprit de corps skill has you kind of imagine the conversation they have when you hang up, which is a really interesting storytelling idea.
Yeah, so the world is being fleshed out. Yeah.
And it's just, and I think maybe it depends on how much, I don't know if it changes based on how you feel about yourself, but then I just, long conversation between everyone in the office going like, who is that? Oh, it was character's name. What's he doing? I don't think he knows. And like, it's just like, back and forth, he told me this, and he told me this, and it didn't make any sense. Do we need to call him in? No, give him a couple of days. Like, he'll figure it out. Like,
so he uses all these amazing tricks to do exposition. Like, this is a full fantasy world, as much as it looks like the 1970s. It's kind of, it is not meant to have any relationship with our world, but they do have telephones and stuff like that, and cars, which all look kind of weird, different, but, you know, evocative.
Yeah.
And it means that the tools that you need in the game, you don't need it to be explained to you, because I do tend to get tired in a lot of fantasy RPGs when I need the exposition to tell me that the magical stone of Angrar is in fact a phone. Yeah. In this game, it's a phone. That is really
Although
really
weirdly,
useful.
you can choose to not know. So you can like go to a bookshop, and the bookshop says what you sell here, and it's like, well, we sell romance, crime stories, mystery novels, and board games. And you can say, slow down. What's a book? And get like the lore for like.
But you also have skills like, you have the esprit de corps, which tells you about like the Force, but then there's encyclopedia, which just pipes up to tell you. Like,
you know this.
Oh, by the way, the thing that they were talking about is this.
Yeah, I do love that one part of your brain is just encyclopedia, and it's just a pedant. It just shows up like, actually.
But if you don't put any skill into it, then it is not going to pipe up.
Yeah.
So you're never going to know anything about the world. And that might be exactly what you want.
How long is the demo that you guys have played?
Well, if you want to have a sort of crisis of your own, go play for an hour. Because then you have... So it does end at a certain point.
It just sounds incredibly dense.
It is.
You played it for an hour and you've got like 12 funny
the game
anecdotes.
also has an in-game clock. I don't know exactly what that affects. I know that when you have a certain thought gestating, like if you're getting your shit together, that takes half an hour. And you have to just walk around and do other things, and eventually it will pop and say, congratulations, you've now got your shit together. I think maybe I had a very immersive experience of this because I did play it first thing this morning, start of the show, with a bit of a sore head, and had that kind of lived experience of like,
me.
Well, I resonated very. I felt profoundly got at actually, but it does end at a certain point. I think it's. I got confused because I think someone was saying that it lasts a certain amount of in-game time, so you have a certain amount of in-game time to do whatever you want. But then my own kind of like this game is real sort of moment was when I was sat playing it and I was almost finishing. I was doing a really interesting conversation with an interesting character, the person who names you actually, kind of encourages you. You have a conversation about names, and you can have a conversation that's like, why are we having a conversation about names? This feels really Sudish and kind of like we've only just met, like to launch straight into this straight away, and like let's not second guess this. We're actually getting on, that kind of thing. And then I could hear. It does a thing where sometimes a ring will appear on your character's head with a node on it, and that means you've heard something. So it does your other senses in a really interesting way. And so that almost becomes an interactive, the hearing becomes an interactable object, or the smell, that kind of thing. And in real life, I just heard the developer over my shoulder going, no, don't worry, it's okay. When he finishes this conversation, his demo will end. And and then that conversation with me was like, but I was only like halfway through the conversation, and I could see the big, and if you ever played a game with text dialogue, the sea of unclicked conversation options was like 8 long. And each of them was like, let's talk more about what it kind of means to name oneself. Like,
sure, I got half an hour.
And I had that quite, and I could feel like the ambient presence of somebody waiting, and I didn't realize I'd been sat there for an hour, and I just went straight to the bottom and went, that's all for now. And then left. In real life and in the game, I have to goad a conversation in like both levels of the Matrix at the same time.
It's quite good.
Yeah, I know we've rambled on about it a lot, but it's like I didn't know what to expect. I'd only seen the art stuff for when it was Furies, and dead impressed. Yeah. Like almost a bit shamed by how good some of the writing is.
Well, it's being made in Estonia, so it's not even first language. Fucking hell.
We're in the building. Can people go to play Disco Elysium?
Yes.
Indie zone over there, just...
It's that way. tomorrow. On that note, does anyone have the time?
20 past.
20 past, okay.
Is that good?
Alex, did you have another game to talk about?
I've managed to not play a single thing, but I did watch someone playing Below. But
What can we make of Below? Because, yeah, Below is sort of low-key here
it's
in a
just
way.
like, oh, you know that game that people have been really excited about for the past 4 or 5 years that was on at E3 and blah, 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 and it's made by Capybara Games, and, you know, it looked really beautiful. Well, it's on one screen in the Xbox area over there.
Yeah, you can just go play
and you can play it. And there's not even a very big queue because everyone is equally surprised. And it's beautiful. It's really beautiful. Kind of just lots of beautiful dark greens. It's very, very dark. Your character is minute. So I didn't play it, so I can't really talk about it that much. So I'm being put a bit on the spot there.
I played it.
What?
Why didn't you say?
Not here.
You watched
it,
me
like,
dying
in November.
Oh.
Fantastic Arcade.
Oh, cool. So it's been, okay, right.
Yeah, I was surprised at how, I guess I didn't know what it was at all. So I was going to be surprised no matter what. Oh, I'm surprised this exists. It is gorgeous. It's very much a hack and slash. I think I expected, because they did Swords and Sorcery and other games I can't recall right now.
Prior to Swords and Sorcery, I think they made like a puzzle bobble game. They used to do like licensed puzzle games.
Might and Magic.
Yeah, they did Clash of Heroes.
Clash
Like
of Heroes, that was
the
it.
inexplicably quite good Might and
Yeah, it
Magic
was
Clash
good.
of Heroes.
They did time thing as well.
Oh yeah, Super Time Force.
Yeah. They used to do like this is Capybara used to do like work for hire for like UB or other companies like on these little license things, and then they just made Swords and Sorcery, and then that was right at the beginning of indie sort of indie rising.
I guess their catalogue is actually pretty eclectic. But yeah, as far as I played, the combat stuff was just these little red dots that come towards you, and you kind of swipe at them and they are destroyed. And then you can stop at like campfires and craft, but the crafting was like combine 4 fish, and that makes a fish potion. Or I guess it was soup, I don't know. But it heals you a bit.
Potion, soup.
And you just have health and hunger, I think, you're 2 meters, and then, but I was surprised at how, I guess, almost action-y it was. It was kind of just about killing things as far as I played. And I got the impression there are secrets because I got stuck for a long time. So maybe the way to progress is a secret. But I found like a little area behind a waterfall that was difficult to get to and difficult to realize was there.
Is there kind of like a sort of very bonfire-y feel that you because it's so dark and the bonfire is quite a warm
Dark
light.
and bonfires, Alex.
I can feel some low hanging.
But it is like Dark Souls, isn't it?
I don't know because I haven't played Dark Souls very much.
At the end of the day,
I'm like the one person who won't compare things to Dark
everything.
Souls.
But are you kind of like venturing out from the bonfire and kind of like then are you compelled to return by some sort of systems?
Death, I guess. But it's very minimalist and very beautiful, and I don't know, I hope there's some kind of like mystery thing going on, because I think that's what I was expecting, was like
I saw
more
mysterious
intrigue.
geometrical things.
Yeah, and I didn't play very long, but I also did get stuck. So
It seems like an interesting show floor game. I've actually had this feeling quite a lot this year at Rezzed, that there's a lot of really, really good games, and most of the games we've talked about today are actually perfect examples of this, that are probably ideally experienced over a long period of kind of like submersion with them at home. And that's not to say they shouldn't be, you know, like it's great to go and try things, but I felt like, there's plenty of like really good short form games as well. But like I also sat down and played Cultist Simulator today, for example, and had that feeling of like, oh wow, I kind of want to be able to pick this apart at my own speed. Below very much felt like that. I watched a couple of people play it as well, and there's a lot of like, I'm lost in a big field, but because I'm in the Xbox booth, I feel like I should probably move on rather than like tease at this mystery for a long time. Similarly, like Phoenix Point, or like, you know, the strategy games and Order of Magnitude are all things that probably like unfold, but
I've
it's
noticed
so nice
actually,
to feel
with Heat Signature, when I took it to Rezzed and EGX and stuff before release, we'd get really good testing feedback, you know, get to watch people play through the tutorial and then into the game and do some missions and stuff. And I've shown it once since release, watch people play. And now that it has a tutorial and then the intro credits come up and then the game proper starts, and almost everyone stops when the intro credits come up, which is like just before it's got started. Like you haven't played any actual missions yet. And I think it's just because there's just that stopping point, there's just punctuation. Like, you do the tutorial, title comes up, and you're in a show environment that gives you like an opportunity to reflect on, ooh, have I spent too long? Is someone waiting to play this? And then people move on. Whereas when we didn't have that, people would go straight into missions. And
maybe that is why I've resonated so profoundly with Disco Elysium at this particular event, because a lot of this event is about walking around going like, should I do that? I should, that person looks like they'd like to sit down more. No, I recognize him, but I don't know if that's just Twitter. I'll go. Like that, the sort of rich internal life of Rezzed.
all of us.
Indeed. We've probably got about half an hour remaining. Is it about 30:30? I don't know what the time is. Thanks, Jonty. Jonty's nodding. I love that everyone like.
Is he nodding?
Jonty was nodding. Yes, it is. We should move on to some questions. So as Jonty said at the beginning, the way this works is if you have a question, I think probably the best thing to do would be to put your hand up, and then I will point at somebody and then approach the microphone. Because I've seen people do it with like the queuing system, but that strikes me as
presumptuous.
Yeah, presumptuous.
Possibly dangerous.
I'd like to mask how short that queue could potentially be. So yeah, if you have any questions, now would be a good time to put a hand up. Yes. Hello.
I have a question for, I guess, Tom more than anybody. What would you say is the biggest thing you realized since becoming a developer that you didn't really understand as a games journalist?
I think,
How to make a game.
That was kind of broad. Sure, if that counts, that would be it. I remember one of the first things that really surprised me was that making scripted scenes is really hard. I assumed it was easy because they were in games a lot, and I hated them. And I was like, well, this must be the easy content to make because I keep doing it, even though it's really bad. And the systemic stuff must be really, really difficult, and it must be really hard to make like mechanics that apply in all situations. And then, on Gunpoint at least, I found that the stuff that applied in all situations was really easy to make. Like, Crosslink was just, like, I don't know, 12 lines of code or something, and then, because I didn't tell it not to work anywhere else, it worked everywhere. Whereas, like, trying to get Conway to, like, crouch at a door for a certain amount of time and then get back up at the end of it, and for someone to say something at a certain point was a fucking nightmare. It was like days and days of work. So I was really surprised by that, because the payoff seems so much lower to me. And obviously, for different kinds of games, it's the other way around. But for any game that isn't about scripted scene and about story, I don't understand why anyone ever does that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Trying to think if I'd learned anything, but
So recently I've been thinking about games that I really want to play, but there's some aspect of them that just like kills it for me. So I was thinking about, Soma had that mod where it removed the monster, and I was thinking how like I'd absolutely love to play Amnesia, but I'm just like too mentally weak to like put myself through that. So I didn't know if there was any games or anything like. I feel this is one of those hard questions that you probably like looked at hours before the podcast normally. But if there's a game that has some sort of mechanic that you really wish wasn't there, that would really change that game and really make it maybe more interesting in a different direction?
yeah, I can speak to this, Tom.
Yep, go ahead.
So I love horror, but I really hate jump scares. Like, I hate designed, pre-planned jump scares, which is like 95% of jump scares in almost everything, because I feel like I'm contending with the level designer more than the monster or the threat or whatever the nature of that threat is. And so maybe a recent example of this would be something like Resident Evil 7, where that initial sense of dread is amazing. It's kind of exactly what I want out of a horror game. But as soon as it starts to promise that it's going to do a big old boo, I get really kind of like, I don't want to anymore now. And it's because it's the two things. It's one, that I'm very scared. And the other side of it is that I'm not scared of something. I'm scared of something that I feel like exists outside of the game, which is, and I feel this way about a lot of horror movies actually as well. And I love horror movies, but it's like, I like to be surprised, which maybe a jump scare is a form of surprise. But I like to be sort of also immersed, and I find that a jump scare puts me in the mindset of, okay, level designer, which cupboard is it, you prick? And that's not, like, I'm not then engaging. And then, so the game for me, and I know I've banged on about it on the podcast a lot, but like, Alien Isolation for me was such a revelatory moment for that, because yes, it has lots of jump scares, but to some extent, you kind of control them. It's like the perfect use of that idea, because it's almost catharsis. It's like, I know I just fucked up. I know I just knocked a can over. And you wait a moment, and you hear the kind of like, the pitter-patter of nasty feet. And then a big tail goes through, and you're like, shit. But you also earned it. And it's, it's a well-animated jump scare. It has all of that kind of, I don't know if anyone ever, a couple of years ago, when I was still working at PC Gamer, I had to stream Alien Isolation like all morning for some reason. I can't remember why. I just had to sit and play it on Twitch for like a couple of hours. And I felt compelled to like be active, because no one wants to watch a Twitch stream of like, here's a man in a locker. He's still in the locker. So I was like, I'm gonna run everywhere. And the game adapts to that really well. But like, I kept getting like the most amazing accidental rhythm of like, oh, an android has grabbed me, and then he pushed me, and then the alien would come down out of the vent and hoist me back. It kind of became this kind of like almost a jump scare as kind of ragdoll payoff kind of free running game. That was good as well, but yeah, I think.
Did you see, I'm afraid I can't remember the name, so if anyone knows it, shout it out, but there was a horror game, a multiplayer horror game that's on Kickstarter, where the killer can see where the survivors are, and they can spawn anywhere that's out of their sight range. So there just are a bunch of monster closets.
It's Friday the 13th.
I heard it wasn't, like maybe it started that way, but there's a post on RPS recently where it specifically wasn't. But anyway, that was a cool, like that kind of jump scare I feel like I'd be okay with, because even though it is bullshit, it's human bullshit.
Yes, yeah.
The best kind of bullshit.
Yeah, I grew up playing lots of AVP multiplayer, Aliens vs. Predator multiplayer, and the whole fun of that was like being the little runner alien and going like, boom, and then like knowing that someone somewhere over 56K modem would just go, shoot, and that's like, that's a magical, that's what the internet can do for us. That's it, basically.
The thing I'm dying to see a mod do is, for Far Cry 5, just take out all the forced plot interruption things, like the bliss bullets and the hunter darts, and the other one where I think you just kind of pass out. I just have no ideas for how to actually get you into the story missions, so they've come up with 3 different mechanics, all of which are the worst kind of bullshit.
They should give you like, I know I've mentioned this in the podcast a lot, and maybe we're having one of those episodes, but like some kind, like, it's a game, you maybe need to eat and drink, or poo, or something. You have the poop timer, and the scary Far Cry villain is always just waiting for you. in the loos. Like, oh no.
I knew this day would come.
Yeah.
In about 6 hours.
Yeah. Ready for a monologue? How about you guys?
Stuff like this.
This guy gets it.
There's crafting stuff often in a game which maybe isn't meant to do, it doesn't need crafting, or doesn't feel like it needs crafting, where crafting is clearly there to eke out time rather than, where you kind of have to find the sticks to do the thing, but it's gating you from the thing that you wanted to do.
It's a really
I can't
fascinating.
think of any actual concrete examples there. I was actually going to say time limit in XCOM. I know that's controversial, because I know that it actually powers. I know it powers. Yeah. But I just did not enjoy having to make fast decisions. I mean, making fast decisions, but having to rush things. And I know that's where a lot of the tension came from. I know that that design would not work without it. But I didn't enjoy the game as much as I wanted to as a result.
It never really stops me playing these games, but there's lots of games from which I wish you could get rid of the money. Particularly RPGs, because I have played hundreds of hours of Oblivion and Skyrim, and I have never once in my life gone shopping in either of those games. I know there are stores where you can go buy spells and swords and stuff like that. I never ever use them, because you come across stuff in the world. And so eventually I come to a point in the game where it's starting to get a bit hard, and I realize that I'm the richest person in the universe, and half of the material goods in that world are in my pockets, and I've never sold anything, and I could just go, and I end up sort of breaking the game at that point, because I've stockpiled this stuff accidentally without caring about it, and now to progress it's getting a bit tricky, and so I end up going and selling everything I own, having even more money, and then just buying like 600 health potions, and now everything is fine again. In fact, too easy.
I'd say buying things is fundamentally unsatisfying in some way. It's better if you just find things.
There was a real problem with, so I spoke to the developers of original DaVinci and Original Sin 2, and they said that they had a problem, I think it was in the first Sin, where they just noticed that lots of players had just so much money. The entire sort of market of the game was completely messed up. And it's because they weren't buying armor. They were meant to be spending their money on armor, and they weren't, because the armor system just wasn't kind of evident enough to players. They didn't value it enough. So they would buy the best sword, because you would, the best weapons, because they make a definable kind of effect on your game. But then, because they weren't buying any armor, they were stockpiling enormous amounts of money. The entire kind of resource sort of system of the game broke down. And all because of completely, apparently unrelated thing, which was because they didn't value armor.
Mm. How did they fix that?
They made the armor system more evident and made it have more of an effect on the stats.
Mm. It's interesting. I feel like there are a lot of very, very successful genres that grow out of these kinds of like hypercritical decisions about what people don't actually want to do. And I was thinking about this last year when I was doing some Eurogamer about survival games and the rise of PUBG and Fortnite. Because in a way, those games sort of stem from DayZ, which had a much more kind of simulationist kind of approach to what people want to do. Like, maybe you want to shoot each other, but maybe you just want to stockpile beans and live in the woods. Or maybe, and I know that for a time, like, they were considering crafting systems and like more of that kind of thing, and that stuff has its own life in survival games that have extensive crafting or housing systems and that kind of thing. Fortnite itself is half that game to some extent. And then it's almost like a series of critical decisions get made, and the possibility space of that initial sandbox gets reduced down to what do people actually do? Well, in DayZ, what they do is run around and shoot each other. And while the first couple of months of the game had all of the emergent potential of like, what if I held you at gunpoint, stole your beans, and then made you run away? But eventually, because of the kind of, ultimately players learn how to succeed, and they just go to like, I'll just shoot you. The sort of all the emergent stuff that is supported by the simulation fades away, and what you're left with is a shooter. So what that then happens is someone comes along and just makes that game. It's like, what if it was this DayZ, but with a better multiplayer structure, no crafting, no kind of health or hunger, no hunger system or that kind of thing.
No zombies. No
zombies, being inconvenient, and then it's gigantic, right? And then someone's like, what if that but free? And then it's the biggest game in the world.
Well, the Fortnite's quite interesting because that brings the sort of the crafting and gathering bit back, but it makes a definable effect on the shooting.
Right, yeah.
It's like it's all kind of plays.
I mean, I'd argue, and I appreciate the moment I say this, that there's going to be like a ripple of like, oh no, from the crowd, but like MOBAs. In some ways, we're like, what do people actually want to get out of MMO PvP? Arena PvP in MMOs was loved by many people, but it was also like a bolt onto a game that also required like a 1,000-hour investment to get a character to the point where you could actually meaningfully participate in it. So what if there was a game that just did that? Straight away, and you didn't have to do all that extra stuff. There's a surprising amount, I think, of interesting design that happens, and very successful design that happens, when people just stop making simulation-y sort of assumptions about what people want, which is a shame, because simulation-y assumptions are like the beautiful dream of games. You know what I mean? It's like, it's the point at which people, like, Star Citizen is a perfect example of a simulation game that is extremely hard to make because it needs to be able to do everything. And, someone in VR right now is just playing a spaceship light gun game, pretty much, getting the 10 percentile of that they would actually get from Star Citizen. I don't know. We should probably answer some more questions. Is a thing. Hands. Yes, chap. The fastest hand.
Oh gosh. Sorry.
Sorry.
Hello. I'm an exhibitor here.
Cool.
This is the first time I've been to an event like this, both as someone showing off a game and as someone who is just interested in games, and there are a lot of them here. What can I do to get the best out of this kind of event?
Sorry, what was the question?
Getting the best out of showing your game at an event like this.
And seeing games.
And seeing games as well.
I always found that these events were most useful for testing in terms of exhibiting. Like, for promotional stuff, I got more press coverage for Heat Signature out of, I think, EGX and to some extent Rezzed than I did from other events for some reason, like even like GDC. But it's always the most value for me is just watching people play the game and just getting to see them hit all the problems that they're going to hit. And you can technically do that outside of these events, but these are great because the people who are going to stop by and play your game aren't necessarily people who already know about it. Whereas when I do testing online, it's all people who already know about the game, and so it's a bit skewed towards people who already are interested in this thing. And so you get like much more of a torture test here, where people who don't know who the fuck you are or what the hell your game's about come by and play and stumble over everything, and you find out all those problems. And you can actually see this. It's very common for indie games that have been to a lot of shows. The first level is amazingly well polished and just beautifully intuitive and flows. And then I found this with Mushroom 11 after you get past the first like 15, 20 minutes. It's just been absolutely magical, perfect. And then it suddenly just hits this difficulty wall because I imagine they didn't have as much testing from events like that.
Or that's when you want to get people off the stand.
Yeah. I actually, because of that, I was always really keen for people to sit and play my game for as long as possible. I was always like, they'd feel guilty and get up, and I was like, no, please stay there. I've never seen someone play level 5 before.
I think
the other side, I think, is the, you know, if you're going to see other games, you get a snapshot of what people are making right now, and you also get to see the kind of the breadth of ideas that are around kind of the areas they're exploring, but also how popular things are. So you get, you know, when you see a crowd, then you know that's something people are gravitating to.
If Goose Game is in the room,
Yeah.
you'll learn a lot about what people like.
So it's good for research as well.
I think I joked about it earlier about how kind of awkward things can be in terms of like talking to people and wanting to sort down. I think that's true for everybody sometimes at events, or maybe I'm speaking about myself, but I think it can be awkward to, and I say this maybe having had some experience when I was working on PC Gamer. I worked on the first PC Gamer Weekender and was very sort of like, very anxious that people were having a good time. And I found that a lot of people are kind of waiting to be reached out to, not physically, but if someone is hovering at, you know, near 3 games, they will probably sit down and play the one where someone goes, hey, this is my game, I made this. And you know, I like am in this industry, and I must tell the story before, but like because of the Eurogamer Expo in like 2011, when I was playing Dragon Age 2, and the Xbox red ringed, and I turned around, and John T, who's over there, was laughing at me. And he was the editor of Official Xbox magazine at the time, and then my entire life changed. But that was, I mean, that's not, what I'm not saying is laugh at people.
Get laughed at.
Yeah, but what that did is then we had a conversation, and then that was actually the most valuable thing I got out of that event. And actually, always the most valuable thing I get out of an event is meeting somebody cool, or from any part of the industry or not. Really, like the games are important, and they're why people are here, and seeing games before release is exciting. But it's like, oh, I met this person who's making a game that maybe I'm probably not going to play, but they have a really fascinating process or something like that.
It's also really good when you meet people either around your booth or anywhere else, when you tell them what your game is, to practice different pitches, try and explain it one way, see if their eyes light up, and if they don't, try something else next time. And I kept changing the way that I explained Gunpoint, for example, to people, because first few attempts at it, you just explain it and just a total blank look. And you can definitely tell when you get through, like that sometimes they're like, oh, okay.
And that's, yeah, actually, I went to a few shows showing a game I was working on called Beast of Balance, which is kind of like a weird game where you balance plastic models on a plinth thing, which is then connected to an iPad, and then you're kind of playing a kind of a strategy come balancing game. It's kind of hard to explain, and doing it for 3 days, day in, day out, and losing your voice actually is really good for honing exactly the efficient, exactly how efficient you can be, the minimal number of words, put on, yeah. It was, but it's good for just, it's quite good for understanding what is good about your game and what people gravitate to, what is the important thing about it, and how do you sell it to people.
Hopefully that helps. Do you have any more questions? Yes, you sir. John T, what's the time? I appreciate that we're getting booted out. 26. Oh, we've got loads of time. Fine, good. Let's keep going.
I enjoyed your chat the other week about Into the Breach, and how you kind of, some of you felt that you liked certain aspects of how it had been tweaked, and others you didn't. And for me, I felt like it had been sort of laser targeted at exactly what I wanted out of it. As pretty much as soon as I watched your videos of it, Tom, I knew that I was going to love it, and I did, and played it constantly for 2 or 3 weeks, and did all the achievements, everything, like, which doesn't happen very often. I was just wondering if you guys had any other games, any times when you felt that a game has almost been designed perfectly for your particular tastes.
Is Matthew here? Matthew Doves? He was around earlier. I just wanted to know if I get a commission for that sale. I feel like Invisible Ink, although I didn't know I wanted it until I played it. Like, it felt like, oh, I like all these things, and I like them in this particular combination. I didn't know I would. So yeah, design for me by someone who knows me better than I know myself.
I guess for me it was Spelunky, which I used to talk about a lot on the podcast when I used to be on the podcast. Again, I guess I didn't know I wanted it before I found it, but I was really into roguelikes and I was really into platformers, and it took over my life. So.
And Spelunky's here in the retro zone.
Yeah. Oh man, the retro zone.
Playing
Like,
all the old
remember
classics.
2011.
We could put Skyrim in the retro zone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Alex?
I don't know. I tend to kind of, I think playing a new game is about discovery rather than kind of joining. I don't know. No, I can't think of any off the top of my head.
I mentioned it already, but Torment Tides of Numenera was this for me. As a huge RPG nerd anyway, and someone who loved that setting from the pen and paper game, obviously there was an element of like, oh, you're making that? Okay. Like, I have already bought it. But more specifically, I really loved, I didn't realize I was waiting for an RPG that wasn't interesting, and this is really the Torment side of it, the Planescape side of its heritage, but like I'd missed RPGs that weren't quite so resolutely on the traditional kind of like hero's journey fantasy arc that typifies, and I love Bioware games, as people listen to the podcast know, but like there is there's a commonality of arc of what you expect in terms of what you expect in terms of setup and resolution, and I just basically wanted a very wordy game about like weirdos, basically, is what I really wanted.
Wordy games about weirdos.
Yeah, actually, I replayed it recently, but another game that did this at the time was Xenoclash. I remember Xenoclash? The game about punching like grimdark Sesame Street characters. I revisited it recently because it's got such a phenomenal art style. It's kind of like somewhere between like Hieronymus Bosch, Dave McKean, John Blanche kind of fantasy world with like really deeply bad voice acting, but in a way that makes the whole thing feel better. Like those kinds of experiences are the ones that always get me in that way, in that sort of like, oh man, why aren't there more of these? And
did anyone, I've mentioned it before, but no one knew what the hell I was talking about last time. But the Xenoclash guys did another game about rolling...
Rock of Ages.
Yeah.
No, sorry. About a giant rolling pin type thing that's taking over a whole planet, and you're an egg trying to get away from it.
Yeah.
If people don't know the game, you sound like a complete madman trying to explain it. No, this is a real thing. There's definitely a game about this.
Yeah,
Did that come out or anything?
I don't know. I just remember watching a video. Yeah.
No, it never came out.
Oh, man.
I don't know if they're still working on it. I know the last game they did, which I think was just last year, was Rock of Ages 2. So if they're still working on it, it's in the background somewhere.
So they went with the ball, not the rolling pin.
Egg of rolling pin. That's what I would have called it.
Do we have any more questions from the audience? Anyone want to stick a hand up? Anyone at all? Yeah. The microphone is yours.
As when Star Trek Bridge Crew came out, I thought it was like a fan's dream. Is there any other game or fiction that you would apply that setup to? Like one I think you would like would be like Warhammer Titan Crew, probably, which would be great, like Mech Warrior, bigger mech.
Yeah, so you're talking specifically about the kind of VR...
yeah, just sitting with your mates.
So yeah, so Bridge Crew is like, if people ever played like Artemis Bridge Simulator, it's like that, but with the license that really needed. Yeah, sorry, is that the question? Were you done? Yeah, good, sorry, yeah. Yeah, so basically games where you and some friends put on VR headsets and are, well, Star Trek Bridge Crew is obviously you are a bridge crew on a Star Trek spaceship. Yeah, other uses for that setup.
Well, now I want the Titan one.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah, I think there's loads of potential for that, actually. I've been playing a lot of VR stuff recently for some work stuff, and I'd love, like, there's real potential in, like, the war room kind of environment where, I mean, you know, go to licenses that I like. But actually, hang on. No, I want the game where you are the people on the rebel base on Yavin during the attack on the Death Star, just staring at a map as a little bar goes like, the Death Star will be in firing range in 7 minutes. And then eventually you just go, oh, and that's it. There's lots of good, like, VR is really good for this. Like, VR is good for those sort of like single room kind of experiences. And I think there'll be a real home for that kind of thing.
Now I want like a map war room, like in Dragon Age, where you have a giant like parchment map, but you can only choose to invade a place by literally stabbing it with a dagger.
Yeah, exactly.
And the map gets increasingly fucked up for more.
Yeah, and it's like a competitive RTS, so you're both players.
And if you want to like draw a line of attack, you got to carve a whole.
Actually, Brass Tactics is kind of already like that. I think I talked about that on the pod recently, which is a Oculus war game that looks like the map from Game of Thrones or Clockwork things, and you sort of like direct your troops, and you can see the other person directing their troops. And basically, only the very slight amount of real human empathy created by watching someone else float around with their hands is the only thing that stops you like making gestures or like dancing at people and so on. In terms of actual fictions, though, that fit this really well.
I haven't thought about this before, but I feel like there's good mileage in modern spy films, which always have Tom Cruise off doing something dramatic while a team of other people are sat in a van somewhere.
Simon Pegg Simulator.
Yeah, I feel like you could have a good line in just being the team of hackers or spies and drone operators that are, and maybe there's just like an NPC, which is the Arnold Schwarzenegger or Tom Cruise hero that's off doing stuff, and you're just like crouched on top of a lift trying to hack something before you get crushed at the top of it.
Yeah, that's a really nice idea. Yeah, like multiplayer VR vignette-based 30 Flights of Loving.
Yeah, someone was, again, I don't know the name, sorry, but someone was making a multiplayer game co-op where one of you is the agent, the other one's the headphone guy, and has to turn off the security at the right time for the agent to get through.
Yeah, it's a bit like the quadrilateral. A cowboy has a little bit of that where you're programming the thing that's going to let you go through. Yeah. I've always kind of, games that do chases. I'm thinking probably quite a lot of Uncharted, like where they have you're going through the dense kind of city, through the boxes, and it's really tight kind of sort of lanes, and you're taking right-hand corner, sort of it's really busy. But it's like obviously been play tested for 3 years to make sure that half the time you go the right way and you don't crash into stuff, and if you actually make the cinematic trip through it that you're meant to without restarts and things. I would love to play the game that manages to nail the kind of like the Bourne, or the Bourne kind of running through the city and over the balustrades and kind of up stuff. Kind of a bit like Assassin's Creed, but Assassin's Creed's a bit sort of weird and janky, and it's not dense enough. You kind of want to feel like you are, maybe it's a turn-based game.
Would that be not in VR then?
No, I don't think, well, you could be. It could be. It could be. But I'm thinking actually it's probably like a turn-based thing where like sort of the thing comes in and you've got to sort of plot your course around it. And maybe situational awareness through VR is what kind of enables it.
There's that scene in Heavy Rain, which became a meme briefly, where like there's a chase sequence, and it's just a series of quick-time events, and you can fail each quick-time event, and it keeps going. But you're the guy that's
just the
worst
worst
guy
man.
that you're controlling, is just the clumsiest man at that point. Like he's running through a supermarket and just crashing into aisles and knocking watermelons on the floor and slamming through walls of chickens and.
And you're still like assailant, it's just not getting any closer.
Yeah. So when this question was asked, I had the thought about the kind of like pit crew game. Like if you're going to do the racing game, like the racing game is happening, but the pit crew is a bunch of people with VR headsets on, just doing, I don't know anything about cars, just doing cars. And
where are you going with the car? I'm having the car done.
Yeah, exactly. They do the MOT. Then they clean the
Not
pipe.
on the pit stop, I don't think.
I don't know. But that idea, right? But you could do that for like a sort of Joe Danger style, like movie set thing, where like a stunt is going to happen, and you're all having to like activate the pyro or like throw the glass, or I don't know anything about how films are made either.
But that's the joy of it.
Do a big jump.
You could just be Star Trek Bridge Crew, but you're one of the guys that has to slide open the thing.
Door, exactly.
The doors. You mistime it, and Shatner just slams into it.
Yeah.
You are the bridge.
Yeah. Star Trek Bridge Crew, but you are Wesley Crusher. That's it. Sorry. Good. Any more for that? No.
How much time we got, Jonty?
Cool. Guys, feel free to put hands up with questions if there are any more things to rip on. Yes? There's always exactly one, which has the faint air of desperation. It's enough for me to get nervous and then for it to be okay. Hello.
Hi. Yeah, just made me think about the VR thing, because I recently picked up a Vive and Skyrim VR.
Yeah.
And the bit in it that I wasn't expecting to enjoy was actually talking to people, because the sense of like presence of being stood in front of a character and then being able to kind of like walk away and kind of Columbo them and like come back and like it felt like I was in a play. And I wonder whether that's because I was meeting it halfway. But it made me think about, was there a bit in a game maybe, or games that you didn't expect to like at all, and it was the last thing you would have thought you would expect from that type of game that you did actually really enjoy? Or
God, imagine if they still did the face zoom from Oblivion, but in VR.
Yeah, that would be terrible. Yeah. That's not what happens. Luckily, it's like you're in a little kind of play box, and you can be like, yes, the dragons are a problem.
I can't imagine it. There was a really great little, someone did like live action Skyrim once. Anyone see this? It did good Twitter like a couple of years ago, which was just like a man opens a door in first person, but his hands are actually in front of his face. Because that's not where humans put their hands. And then the guy turns around like on his torso and says like, hello, and then just walks into some chairs. And like, yeah. It's very good. I'll put the link in the show notes, not that's helpful to you at all. I think, I find like, in terms of, I appreciate that the question wasn't specifically about VR, but like, it does make me think about the things that I found do surprisingly work for me in VR, and the things that, like, I think the things that have worked for me, I mentioned on the podcast before that like I was not surprised that VR is mostly good for like gun games and every other verb is hard, but I have been consistently impressed by a lot of the VR cinema stuff that I've seen, which aren't, well, let's not get into that argument, but like they're not interactive in the traditional way. But what they're very good at is creating a sense of the physical presence. Maybe this is what you were saying, the physical presence of a character, even if you're just watching them sort of enact a story. There's an Oculus experience called Dear Angelica, which is done using Facebook Quill. I think Facebook Quill was even created for it. You're kind of in the middle of this, you're listening to a girl write a letter to her favorite movie star, and they have a connection, that's the kind of thing you discover. And it's done in kind of amazing pop art that is drawn around you in 360 degrees as you experience it. And you can't interact with it at all, but you feel this kind of like tremendous sense of, not place is the wrong word, because you're not in a place. It's like we don't really have a word for like, what if you were inside a picture? It's not a place, it's more like you're inside like an artistic kind of moment, but it also feels physically real to you, and that's a really complicated, like, maybe this doesn't answer the question at all, it's just something I like. I like that. Gentlemen?
If you told me this feature was in there, I definitely could have told you I was going to like it, but I had no idea it would be. In Far Cry 5, the fact, okay, so Far Cry Primal is my favorite Far Cry game, as you'll know if you listen to the podcast, because I won't shut up about it. And that introduced javelins, and the javelins are in Far Cry 5, they're just called spades. The fact that you can pick up 12 spades and then throw them directly, like not just into people, but you can pin them to the wall with a spade. And it's like stupendously powerful. That's amazing.
You knew you would like that, Tom. That's not like, oh.
I didn't know it would be in the game.
Oh, you just know it would be javelins.
I was surprised to discover, oh shit, it's got
a
this.
pleasant surprise of javelins.
So a game that I shouldn't like, nobody should probably like, Heavy Rain. I loved it.
It comes out at loud.
It's like, I don't know, this is really embarrassing, but like, the whole father-son thing got to me. I had probably a son about the same age as, was it Ethan? No.
It's Sean.
Sean. Oh, Sean. Jason. And Sean.
Jason. All together now. No.
And like, just like, the bastard fucking worked. It's really annoying. I was kind of annoyed myself as I was playing it, but like, I found it genuinely sort of, I played it quite intensively, you know, until its end. And I felt incredibly let down by its ending. I thought it was a real fuck up. But all of the kind of being in an opulently rendered sort of house that you're in at the start of the game, I really enjoyed opening all the cupboards and stuff. Shouldn't have it. It is a genuinely, objectively terrible game, but I enjoyed it.
I guess I never expected to like flight simulators. I got really into X-Plane for a little while there, and I'm not into planes, I'm not into flying, and at that point I wasn't into simulators at all. But there's lots of little switches on those cockpits, and it's really satisfying to flip them and work out what each one of them does. And like previously, the most I'd ever gone down that route was like Flight Simulator 98, which you could basically play with the keyboard and just skip most of those things. And so getting into actually learning what the buttons on the cockpit do and how to properly take off and all those sorts of things was super satisfying.
Yeah, I guess it's when you learn that you want something from a game that you didn't realize that you actually want.
Did you play many of the like the German simulator games? Like obviously American Truck Simulator, European Truck Simulator, they are stone cold classics.
Do you mean like things published by Excalibur?
Yeah. Like we're talking farming, we're talking buses, we're talking all that.
Underground trains, overground trains.
OMSI is amazing.
Which one?
OMSI, which is not one of the Excalibur ones. OMSI was made, it's an East German bus simulator set in Berlin during the 1980s, and it's designed to simulate a very particular kind of bus, and it is so incredibly evocative of a time and a place. And you drive around, you pick up passengers, you take them where they're going, you get back to the bus depot, you got another 30 minutes before you have to do your route again, so you just
What do you do with the 30 minutes?
I normally keep a book on my desk and read the book. You can't fast forward time, but there is just something.
Why would you?
The use of sound in that game in particular just creates such a sense of place that it's just a lovely, relaxing way to do it. But a lot of the Excalibur simulation games, I played them, they were pretty ropey. A lot of them, they're very basic in terms of the amount of simulation they were doing. And on that note,
we've been kicked out.
The police were at the back.
Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for listening. If this is a podcast that you're experiencing and you're driving a car or something, I don't know. If you in this room would like to join us in the pub after, I believe there's RPS drinks at the Captain Kidd.
Yep, which is about 5 minutes walk from here.
Yeah, it's down towards Wapping Station. That's where we're doing that. I'll record a separate outro for this, for a different point, because I don't want to. But yeah, thank you guys so much for coming, asking questions, and listening. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you'd like to know more about our podcast, you can find it at crateandcrowbar.com. Thanks for listening.